I see Mr. Cook in the front row, so we will take up AB 378, in-home support services. And this is a due pass, members. Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. AB 378 would clarify the existing training mandate by requiring public authorities and nonprofit consortiums, with the consultation of their advisory committees and stakeholders, to develop training standards and core topics provided to in-home supportive services providers and recipients, IHSS. In-home support services provides individuals with the ability to live at home while receiving domestic, personal, and paramedical care. Recently, there's been a lot of discussion on IHSS programs. With an aging population, this is a growing and a continuing need. With IHSS is a much cheaper option than nursing homes, where costs to the public sometimes are 6 to 7 times higher, and still a growing part of our state budget. This bill will ensure we have a quality product for our taxpayer money. There are no significant state costs associated with this bill, and under this bill, individual public authorities and nonprofit consortiums must develop training standards and core topics. Considering the nature of IHSS and the millions in taxpayer dollars at stake, any public authority or nonprofit should have standards in place. It's a cost-effective measure, and it's one which will obviously improve the mission of this important agency.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I see you have a number of witnesses. Do you want to start? These are witnesses in favor, right? Go right ahead.
I'm Senior Assembly Member Lola Young with the California Senior Legislature. The CSL supports this bill, and I support it personally. I spent 6 years on the IHSS Advisory Committee here in Sacramento. In Sacramento County, we've already developed core topics, and we've offered this to our IHSS workers. It has already resulted in better quality care for our IHSS recipients. It's something that should be throughout the state for the benefit of all of our IHSS recipients.
Thank you very much. And we have a quorum now, members, so let me take the roll.
Kehoe?
Here.
Kehoe here. Cox? Here. Cox here. Corbett? Here. Corbett here. Denham? Here. Denham here. Hancock? Leno? Here. Leno here. Oropesa? Price? Runner? Walters? Wolk? Here. Wolk here. Weiland? Here. Weiland here.
We have a quorum, and we're very happy to have you, Senator Denham. Go right ahead. Next witness, please, on the AB 378.
Chairman Kehoe, members, Gary Passmore with the Congress of California Seniors. We have worked very hard to try to advocate for consistent training standards for home caregivers throughout the state. This bill moves us in that direction, and we are strongly in support of this legislation.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Chairman Kehoe, members of the committee, Robert Harris on behalf of California United Home Care Workers, representing the home care workers in 25 rural California counties, in strong support and most thankful to the Assemblyman for carrying this bill. Also on behalf of SEIU State Council in support.
Thank you. And we'll go to members for questions right after we hear from Finance. All righty. Senator Leno, did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question for Mr. Cook and then one for the Department of Finance. Assemblywoman Ma had authored a very similar bill in 2008. In the veto message, the governor said he had a concern about a patchwork of different training standards across the state. Do you have a response to that? And then he also said that he was going to administratively take care of this. That's not the first time we've heard him say such things. And I just wondered, what's the update on the administration's efforts to do this administratively?
Well, that's part of our contention, is that you know, the one size fits all, and how we're going to attack this problem. You're right, it's been vetoed, and there's some question whether it's going to be vetoed again. My contention, I'm very, very supportive of the program because of what was stated. But the other thing is, this is an effort to kind of push this forward. There's been a lot of contentious argument in the papers and the media and everything else about how broken the program is. There's no standardization of training standards, and they're saying, well, they're working on it. Well, I only got so much time up here. I think we all do. And at my age, I only have so much time before I might be a recipient of these services. I'm not trying to be too facetious, but the point is that, I'm impatient, and I think a lot of people are, that we've been promising these things, we're going to correct it. And at least with this bill, I think it says, hey, we're going to develop training standards. At least we got a long ways to go. We need more improvement, but in my opinion, this is something forward.
Thank you, Sullivan. And do we know? You have
I don't
nothing.
have a file on
Okay.
this item.
I forgot to call for more testimony in favor, and I see you've come up, so thank you.
I'm Betty Perry from the Older Women's League.
There you go.
We're very, very supportive of anything that will make this program better, and we think this is an important link in the project.
Thank you very much.
Randy Hicks with Californians for Disability Rights in support.
All righty. Any further testimony in favor? Is there opposition? Is there? Okay. What do you after this, Mr. Cox?
Yes.
Are you in support or opposition?
Opposition.
Opposition. Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Don Chinsky. I'm coming today on behalf of the California Association of Public Authorities. We're opposing the bill on fairly narrow grounds. We would also agree that the IHSS program could benefit from injecting more and better training for both providers and consumers. There seems to be a little bit of ambiguity about this bill that is ultimately, would the obligation for developing the training standards be a state-level obligation, or would it be, as the bill is currently written, would separate standards be developed at each individual county level? Statute requires us to offer training, which we do. It can range anywhere from a basic orientation in some of the smaller counties to some of the larger counties with more resources, offer a broader curriculum to both providers and consumers. Our only main concern about this bill, finally, is that if we are to develop, and we take develop to mean, and implement a full curriculum of training for consumers and providers, including hiring of trainers, some way of tracking all the information.
So go ahead.
It's a resources question for us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
Robert Smith, California Department of Social Services, and as my colleague just...
And I'm sorry, who are you with?
Department of Social Services.
Okay.
And we are opposed to this measure respectfully. We are concerned about the potential for inconsistent standards throughout the state.
All righty, thank you.
Madam Chair, did you answer the question I asked earlier?
Go right ahead. Mr.
right.
Leno?
Could you then answer the question asked earlier as to what you are doing administratively, given that the veto was almost a year ago?
Consistent with the governor's veto message, we did look at our resources in order to see whether or not we can do it administratively. At the time, we did not have the resources available to do that, and that is still the case at this time.
So there's been no change in your program as far as training goes?
No, there isn't.
Okay. All right, testimony in favor or opposed?
In favor, actually, we're the sponsors of the bill. A lot of the issues that have arisen are not new issues.
Oh,
Jovan A.G., representing United Domestic Workers, with
right,
the sponsor
and we've
of the bill.
had 5 testimonies in favor, so if you can just give us
Yeah, I just want to wrap it up. I met with all of your offices. This is a very hard nut to crack.
The lady asked you to just give your name, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said a brief testimony. I'm sorry. We're in support of the bill, and we would definitely hope that a lot of the Senate Republicans primarily will come on the bill as co-authors to send the signal to the governor that this should be done this year.
All right, thank you. Senator Cox.
Madam Chair, Assemblyman Cook, I heard the comments about inconsistent standards, and clearly we don't have the funds to do that which is being suggested. I also think it creates an enormous upward pressure, ultimately for the state of California to pick up the costs for this particular program. And for that reason, as noble as it may be, it's not a bill that I can support this morning, Mr. Cook. I would think that that we would be better served if in fact, you made this a 2-year bill. Maybe we will, in fact, be out of our financial difficulties in that period of time, or at least be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel and recognize it's not a fast-moving freight train, sir.
Thank you, Senator Cox. Members, this is a due pass. The bill calls for the development of standards and core topics, and the supervisors may, at their option, adopt these things. So Senator Leno has a motion, and we'll call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
No.
Cox, no. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Runner? Walters? Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Yee? Yee, aye. 6 to 1. Is that all? No, still one more. You need one more. You need one more vote.
All righty. I will leave that bill on call. You need one more vote, Mr. Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Going and final item, members, Mr. Fuhr is next. Mr. Fuhr, you're taking up 392 and AB 938, and you're putting over 1462. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All righty. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. AB 392 is a crucial, time-sensitive measure. Many of the members of the committee are familiar with the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. It's the only program in the state that assures that seniors who are living in nursing homes are protected from abuse and neglect. They have unannounced visits, they investigate these claims, and they're in the front lines to prevent our seniors from being in those desperate straits. Last year, the governor vetoed $3.8 million in funding for the Ombudsman program. That's about half their funding. They've been forced to reduce their staffs dramatically. This measure would restore $1.6 million to the program. The funds are special funds that derive from penalties on nursing homes. They're not general fund dollars. This is an urgency, bipartisan measure, and the reason that I'm here today is to urge you not to place the matter on suspense if there's any way to avoid it, given that these are not general fund dollars, given that the program is hanging in the balance, and actually the senior citizens who they protect could find the decision you make today to be literally a life or death situation. So with this, I urge an aye vote.
Thank you very much. And I see a lot of testimony, so we'll take the first 3 brief testimony. This is testimony in favor, and then the other folks in favor will just give us your name and position.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jackie McGrath with the Alzheimer's Association. To the point of going to suspense, and Mr. Fuhr has obviously made the arguments very well. This really is life and death. We're talking about the frailest of the frail in nursing homes, many of whom do not have family in the area. With the state capacity being lowered on monitoring nursing homes and assisted living, it's absolutely critical that we allow the Ombudsman to be able to do this oversight. And it is a non-general fund. We are just hoping, Madam Chair and members, that you will make an exception with respect to your suspense file. It is life and death for these folks.
Thank you. Next, please.
Madam Chair, my name is Joan Parks. I'm the Administrator of Ombudsman Services of Northern California, a 13-county program, and one of the co-sponsors of AB 392. It's an urgency measure because as of today, I can report 2 most recent deaths because we don't have our advocacy services out in the field. 2 weeks ago, we received a call from Community Care Licensing, the regional office, asking us to intervene in a facility where the caregiver and the wife of and the husband of the caregiver were both arrested due to criminal neglect and abuse of one of the residents who had suffered from decubitus ulcers, sepsis, and died. They called our office asking us to go into that facility, monitor the care of the residents during the interim before they decide what they're going to do. One of the residents in that home is bedridden, which is against the law. We have no staff, I have no volunteers, no reimbursement for mileage to even help community care licensing at this point. We had another resident just last week who was abused in the nursing home, went to the acute hospital, and begged not to be returned to that nursing home. There was no other place for him to go. He went to that home, and he committed suicide that night because of his fear of retaliation against him. I have to live with that each night. I have to live with the fact that these residents are in these homes without any proactive advocacy, and all we're asking is that this bill not go to suspense. 6 more weeks is 6 more weeks of no proactive advocacy in these homes, and we ask for your consideration, and thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, please.
Betty Perry from the Older Women's League. You make one visit to a nursing home and you'll see why our organization supports this. The older women are a high percentage of the occupants. When I know the work Joan Parks does, it is marvelous. We need this here. We need to have this service to be sure that people who can't speak for themselves, who have relatives who are maybe not living or living away, they have no other source of help. And this is just a marvelous thing that our state has developed, and we cannot abandon it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the other speakers, just your name and position on the bill. Yes.
Gary Passmore with the Congress of California Seniors, urging you to give us a due pass today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy Hicks, Californians for Disability Rights, in support.
Thank you.
Senior Assembly Member Lola Young with the California Senior Legislature, in strong support, and urge you to pass this today.
Next, please.
Jenny Canoyer, GAP coordinator. GAP stands for Golden Ages for Progress. Stanislaus County, also an ombudsman, in strong support of passage of this today. Thank you.
Nancy Villasenor from the Stockton Catholic Charities Office. I am also an ombudsman, and we urge you to pass this, please.
Thank you.
Julia Hassel from AARP, and I'm representing 3.4 million members in California, and we strongly support AB 392. Thank you.
Nicole Wertelman on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, as well as the Ventura County Board of Supervisors, also in support.
Shannon Leahy, Catholic Charities of California, in strong support.
Linda Warner with the California Catholic Conference, in support.
Benson Nadell, President of the California Long-Term Care Ombudsman Association and the Director of the San Francisco Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. Please, not on suspension.
Wanda Hale, Long-Term Care Ombudsman, Santa Clara County, in strong support of this bill.
Tippi Irwin. I'm the Director of San Mateo Ombudsman, and I'm also a member of the board of the California Long-Term Care Ombudsman Association, in strong support of the bill.
Marlene Siebert, Santa Clara Ombudsman Program, Catholic Charities, in support. Thank you.
Mary Jane Perrine, State Certified Long-Term Care Ombudsman Volunteer, Santa Clara County, strong support for passage now, not suspension.
Mary Lou Christina, Catholic Charities of Santa Clara County, Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, in support.
Chris Kenny, San Mateo County Ombudsman Board, in strong support.
Les Cohen, retired lobbyist, volunteer ombudsman of Orange County. Thank you. Supporting the bill.
All righty. Is there any opposition testimony? Opposition testimony. Finance, do you have a comment?
Okay.
Then, Mr. Fuhrer, you made a compelling case. Your witnesses did also. I think Mr. Cox is ready to make a motion. I asked her. She said nothing. I have a motion from Senator Cox. Will you call the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Aye. Cox, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropesa? Price? Runner? Walters? Aye. Walters, aye. Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. 9-0 is out.
9-0, that bill is out, and we'll close the roll. Can we go back to that other item we took up and just do a roll call on that? We call the absent members, and the item is, please.
AB 378, Cook.
Okay, this is members.
pass.
This is item AB 378 by Mr. Cook, dealing with in-home support services. Please call the absent members.
Hancock, Oropesa, Price. Aye. Price, aye. Runner, Walters, Wyland. 7-1, it's out.
7-1, that bill is out. Let's see then, Mr. Fury, you're going to take up now AB 938, dependent children.
Yes, and may I express great gratitude to the committee on the previous vote.
You're very welcome.
Regarding AB 938.
And members, this meets the criteria for suspense.
Indeed.
And it will go there.
Indeed. And I'll be very brief, Madam Chair, members of the committee. AB 938 is a really important bill for our foster kids because, as we know, when kids are removed from abusive homes, sometimes there are family members with whom they could be placed, but those members are not cognizant of what's happening. So this bill implements a federal mandate that requires that relatives be notified when children are removed from their parents and placed in foster care, and that they be provided with information about the various options for being involved in the child's life. I know this is a candidate for suspense. It's an important bill, and I thank the chair and committee members.
Is there testimony in favor? Is there any testimony in favor? Come right up.
Farrah McDade King for the California State Association of Counties, in support.
Thank you very much. Any further testimony in favor?
Good morning. I'm Lillian Clark on behalf of the National Association of Social Workers, in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. Any additional testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No file.
Members, this, without objection, then we'll go to suspense.
Thank you again, Madam Chair, committee members.
And let me see, Mr. Hagman, I think you're next. Nope, hold it. Let me just, Ms. Evans is here now. We're going in file order. So, go ahead, Ms. Evans. And then Ms. Caballero, you'll be next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two bills. AB 510 is the first one. I believe that's recommended for suspense, so I will be very brief. This bill amends current law to take into account cuts that counties are having to make to services in CalWORKs. The bill suspends a CalWORKs participant's 60-month lifetime clock for any person who is granted good cause for non-participation in welfare-to-work activities. Counties currently have the authority to suspend, or excuse me, to grant good cause, but legislation is required to allow the suspension of the 60-month lifetime clock. So that's what this
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Testimony in favor? And the concern here is that we'll be adding those extra months will be costly. This is a candidate for suspense.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Frank Mecca with the County Welfare Directors Association. Cuts to the CalWORKs program last year and those that are slated for continuation and to actually deepen have put counties in a position that we have not been in since the inception of the program, and that is where we cannot offer services like child care and transportation and job training to everyone who's required to work. The original CalWORKs agreement, bipartisan agreement, and signed by Governor Wilson, was such that there was a compact between government and the client that we would provide the supportive services and everybody who's able-bodied would be required to move from welfare to work. We are at the point where we cannot meet the need for everyone's supportive services. We have the option under current law to provide people good cause not to participate. We can say, sorry, we can't pay for your services. You're not a mandatory participant. But their clock ticks, and so they're at a disadvantage because of the failure of government to live up to our side of the bargain. And so we think that this is fundamental to the original philosophy of CalWORKs, and we would urge your support. And we'll work with the staff on the fiscal as the bill moves forward.
Thank you very much. Next, please.
Farrah McDade King with the California State Association of Counties. I want to echo Frank's comments in support of the bill.
Thank you. Next, please.
Lillian Clark with the National Association of Social Workers. Also would like to echo Frank's comments, and we are in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. I think there's further testimony.
Linda Warner with the California Catholic Conference, in strong support.
Thank you very much.
Mike Carroll, Western Center on Law and Poverty, and strong support also.
Very good. Is there testimony, any other testimony in favor? Any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
I do not.
All right, members, this is a candidate for suspense, so without objection, it'll move to the suspense file. Oh. Go right ahead.
Obviously, this is a very big issue right now and everything surrounding it. I just had one question. What would be an example of a good cause exemption? I've not been involved in this in all the various budget committees, but what I have not understood is, since most states, or all but a couple of states, follow the federal law, what would be, and my understanding is that the requirement is pretty minimal, and that California's movement from CalWorks to jobs is one of the lowest in the country, if I'm correct about that. What would be an example of an exemption where, as I understand it, you're saying we need to give this person something so they could be employed, but we don't have the resources?
Well, with respect to the comment about California's performance vis-a-vis other states, it's a long conversation, and just suffice to say that we don't agree with the characterization and would be very happy to share information with you about that. But with respect,
I'd like to, when you get a chance, because I want to understand that.
Absolutely. With respect to the question, good cause was envisioned in CalWorks as a mechanism for a temporary emergency. Somebody has a temporary family emergency. They're called to care for a loved one out of state. Something happens in the family situation. That was the original intent of a good cause exemption from work. There are people who are exempt completely. People over the age of 65.
Yeah.
People who are themselves disabled. But good cause was intended to be something that's temporary.
Okay.
But what's happening now?
In deference, I appreciate that. I would like the information.
Sure.
Thank you.
Very good. So we asked for opposition. Finance, you have no comment. As I said, this is a candidate for suspense, so without objection, it goes there. Ms. Evans, you've taken up AB 729 now.
Yes.
And this is a due pass, members, on design build.
Thank you, Madam Chair. AB 729 is a very simple bill. It extends design build authority for public transportation agencies through January 1, 2015, and the current authority sunsets January 1, 2011.
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
We have a motion from Senator Cox, due pass. The testimony in favor, if you don't mind, Ms. Evans, we'll go to that.
Mr. Query is here on behalf of the California Transit Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Gus Corr on behalf of the California Transit Association. We are to sponsor the bill. This will allow us to maintain an existing tool to help expedite the delivery of Proposition 1B and American Recovery and Reinvestment Act projects. Ask for your support.
Thank you. Next, please.
Mike Robeson on behalf of Caltrain, which is the commuter rail on the peninsula, in support of the bill.
Very good. Is there any additional testimony in favor? Opposition testimony.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Senators. Julianne Broyles here on behalf of Associated Builders and Contractors of California. We are opposed to the basic policy of the design build because we do not believe that it permits the non-union contractors to participate fairly in the process. Certainly that is not an issue for this committee, but we do want to continue to register our opposition and would like to see the underlying law changed to encourage more contractors to be involved in the process.
Thank you. Any further opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment? Did you make a motion, Senator?
I did, Madam Chair. And let me just say to the lady who just testified, this is a continuation of that which was agreed on almost 8 years ago. And as far as I can determine, there hasn't been any changes that have been made in this particular bill. And so I do, in fact, move the bill, Madam Chair.
We have a motion, members. Will you please call the roll?
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox?
Aye.
Cox, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Walters? No. Walters, no. Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Yee, aye. 9 to 1.
9-1, that bill is out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. All right. Let's see. Mr. Mendoza is here now. I'm sorry, Ms. Caballero. So in file order, didn't I see it, Mr. Mendoza? Yes. You're presenting two items, AB 211. And this is a candidate for suspense on the classroom security locks.
That's correct. I was going to waive presentation. There might be some folks who want to speak on it real quick.
All righty. Testimony in favor, then, members, on AB 211.
Dolores Sanchez with the California Federation of Teachers. We are the sponsors of the bill. This bill emanates from our Safe and Nonviolent Schools Committee. We surveyed our members, and this was one of the top issues troubling our teachers, so we ask for your aye vote.
This will allow for locks from the inside of the classroom.
Absolutely,
Okay.
so that folks don't have to go outside of their classroom in order to lock the door in case of a lockdown.
Thank you. And next, please.
Ian Padilla with the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. We had it a support if amended. The bill has been amended, and so CASH is now in full support.
Very good. Next, please.
Brian Rivas on behalf of the California School Boards Association in support.
All righty. Any other testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
We believe that the cost would be minor and absorbable.
Member, this is for suspense. Mr. Weiland?
Just very quickly, I understand it's going to suspense. There's not going to be any cost to this at all. Supplied a jillion schools. This is a really good bill. I know it's going to suspense. We should get it off. This protects children, protects teachers, and the cost would be virtually, it's nothing.
It's we have 100,000 to 320,000 a year to change every lock in the school. But I hear your comments.
Thank you.
Unless you're objecting, though, Senator, it's going to go to suspense. All righty. So there it is. AB 1085, Mr. Mendoza, on your SAR board regulations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I'm here to present AB 1085 that requires the Air Resources Board to make available the information it uses in development regulations prior to opening the 45-day comment period. This way, interested parties can evaluate and give thoughtful analysis prior to the adoption of rules and regulations by CARB. AB 1085 will strengthen the regulatory process by creating a consistent and complete data set for all stakeholders to draw from. In doing so, AB 1085 will allow for informed and thorough debate among stakeholders for all future CARB regulations.
Senator Denham moves the bill. Is there testimony in favor?
Madam Chair, members, George Miller on behalf of the California Trucking Association, sponsor of the bill. We feel this bill will allow stakeholders such as ourselves to have all the relevant information prior to the development of the regulations so that we can have enough advance notice to look at all the inputs and the technical data that went into the development of the regulations to be able to clearly delineate what it is that they're doing and whether, in fact, the regs will have the impact that they say they will have both on us and the environment and everything else.
Very good.
Strong support.
Next, please.
Crystal Jack on behalf of the California Grocers Association in support of the bill.
Very good. Any additional testimony in favor? Is there any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
No file.
Mr. Leno, do you pass? Oh, Mr. Denham, I'm sorry. Senator Denham moves do pass as amended. The bill will cross-reference the Administrative Procedures Act, Senator Denham, so that's your motion. Call the roll, please.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Walters? Aye. Walters, aye. Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Weiland? Aye. Weiland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. 10-0.
10-0, that bill is out. Thank you, Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you.
Mr. Solorio is next. And this is one item, AB 316, and you may begin.
Thank you, Chair and members.
And this is a candidate for suspense, members, just so you know.
Okay. As you might know, persons who have been wrongfully convicted typically face the same obstacles as those who were regular release felons. In addition, they experience the unique personal and psychological struggles of having spent years in prison for crimes that they did not commit. This bill would help them with some of those struggles. Core elements of this bill would require the court to seal the person's record upon determination that he or she was wrongfully incarcerated, inform the wrongfully convicted person of his options regarding possible compensation and time limits, extend from 6 months to 2 years the deadline to file a claim for damages with the California Victims' Compensation Board, extend the current timetables for the statute of limitations to file a claim of malpractice. And as you might recall, I did have a similar bill last year. It was vetoed by the governor because of some reentry services that were a cost to the county. We have eliminated those reentry services from this bill, so there are no costs there. And we did that to address the governor's concerns. According to your analysis, extending the time limit to file a claim would not necessarily result in more claims, as the Victims' Compensation Board indicated that it has denied no claims due to missing the current 6-month deadline. Also, should there be any cost, it would come from the restitution fund, not the general fund. So definitely no cost to the general fund. This bill has received strong bipartisan support, and we added Senator Mark Leno, the chair of the Public Safety Committee, as a co-author at our last hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. That's very good.
Thank you.
Is there testimony in favor? Is there opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Finance is neutral but does note concerns. Finance's concern is that it could result in additional general fund cost pressures. However, given the board's existing practices, it doesn't appear that they would be significant cost pressures. And we believe that this year's measure, speaking to your veto concern, that this year's measure does not contain the same local mandate that was subject of last year's veto message.
Thank you. Senator Cox?
Mr. Slurry, good morning to you, sir.
Morning.
Let me just, on page 10 of the daily file, the file, from lines 3 through 10, which essentially said, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, for the purpose of this chapter, when determining whether the claimant intentionally contributed to bringing about his or her arrest or conviction, the fact finder shall not consider statements obtained from the involuntary. And who is the fact finder in that situation, Mr. Slurry?
Boy, I don't have our expert witnesses here with us today. I know this may be going to suspense. Maybe that's something I could provide to the committee.
All right. Well, when you do that, if you would, I'd like some sort of a statement from you,
sure,
relative to what the fact finder did. Then it says, "Also, shall not consider statements obtained by an involuntary false confession or involuntary plea. The claimant shall bear the burden of providing by a preponderance of evidence." My presumption is the fact finder is not in the court of law, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, under that circumstances, what does the preponderance of evidence mean in a non-judicial setting? And then this third question I have for you, sir, is who determines if there was a forced guilty plea? So between now and the time this comes back, if you could answer those three questions or bring witnesses to the fact, I'd be very appreciative.
Would be happy to.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Any further questions, members? This is a candidate for suspense, so without objection, it'll go to the suspense file.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. We'll work on the questions in the meantime. Ms. Caballero. Ms. Caballero is doing AB 444 on land use, natural resources. This is also a suspense candidate, Ms. Caballero, so
yes, ma'am.
You may begin.
Thank you very much. AB 444 would clarify that funds set aside for the long-term management of mitigation lands conveyed to a nonprofit organization may also be conveyed to the nonprofit. AB 444 is permissive. It does not require a state or local agency to transfer the endowment to a land trust. It would allow them to do so, and it is prospective. It's not anticipated that they'd go back and redo what they're already doing. Current law is silent as to whether this is permissible, and so this bill was basically created to create the opportunity, because some are already doing this, and we want to make sure that they have good legal standing. The costs identified by DFG are incredibly inflated. We anticipate that there will be a one-time cost to set up the contract, and after that, it's a minimal cost to the agencies. And it's not only DFG; it's other agencies as well as local governments. And so, wanted you to take a very, very close look at the numbers. I think the staff analysis says 100,000 to 200,000. That I think maybe it's a contract, and once you get the contract written, it should be fairly minimal to do on a yearly basis.
Thank you. And while it's in suspense, one of the questions that was raised by committee staff was that the funds that are intended to endow or maintain the real estate wind up in our pooled money investment account, which the state can then benefit from using.
Yes.
So if we move those to nonprofits or other agencies, we wouldn't have the benefit of that. So that's one question, and we understand and agree with you that trying to determine exactly what is in the possession of Fish and Game seems to be a challenging situation. So we can work on that together. Anyway, your testimony in favor, go right ahead.
My name's Darla Ginsler, Madam.
And is your mic on? There you go.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I'm Darla Ginsler with the California Council of Land Trust, and we're pleased to sponsor this bill that's had very strong bipartisan support as it's moved through. I'd just like to mention a few points. The first is, as Ms. Caballero reported, this bill applies to all state and local agencies, not just Fish and Game. But in fact, Fish and Game itself already has an existing entire program through which it reviews qualifications of nonprofits, and they allow nonprofits to hold endowments already. So all the essential components are in place for the department to continue doing this if they choose. And finally, the bill does require the nonprofit to have an investment policy that is consistent with state law for the management of institutional funds. And this is to go to a point raised or a concern raised by the staff to ensure that the investment policies and the permissible instruments fall within the very prudent state laws regarding these kinds of funds. So we encourage the committee to permit this bill to go forward ultimately to allow and enable the tools for nonprofits to efficiently manage these mitigation lands that they're accepting on behalf of state and local agencies. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members, and staff. My name is Rico Mastrodonato with the Trust for Public Land, and I want to support Ms. Ginsler's comments. I also wanted to add to that we at the Trust for Public Land believe that the state will also realize cost reductions associated with processing these reimbursements to nonprofits, and the nonprofit is going to realize the benefit of not having to advance costs of managing these properties and then wait sometimes up to a year to be reimbursed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional testimony in favor? Is there any opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Fish and Game indicates costs of about $770,000 and 2 positions over 2 years to develop the guidelines to initiate the program. DFG also estimates ongoing costs of about $670,000 and 2.5 positions to review agreements with nonprofits to fund these to acquire land and easements, hold endowments. Because there is no apparent fund source, these costs would likely be borne by the general fund. The Department of Finance does concur that there would be costs associated with this bill. However, like many of you, we believe that Fish and Game's estimates are a bit high.
Yeah.
But requests for additional resources would be evaluated during the annual budget process.
Fish and Game doesn't agree that it would come out of the Fish and Game Preservation Fund?
There aren't sufficient funds in that fund.
There are not, okay. Thank you for that information. Members, this is a candidate for suspense, so without objection, we will send it to suspense. Thank you, Ms. Caballero.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Let's see. Next is Mr. Furatani, and you are presenting AB 503. This is a due pass, members, and then after that, AB 506. Go right ahead, Mr. Furatani.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, good afternoon. Good morning, excuse me. AB 503 would allow California to continue providing support to victims of domestic violence. This bill extends the sunset of the Domestic Violence Advisory Council to January 1st, 2015. By extending the sunset, the Advisory Council will be able to allocate $20 million a year to 94 battered women shelters statewide that provide counseling and protective services to victims of domestic violence.
Thank you, Mr. Fortani. We're racing against the clock here because we've got our session at noon. Do you have witnesses in favor? Thank you. We're getting a lot of motions here. Any opposition testimony? Finance, do you have a comment?
The Department of Public Health currently incurs minor costs of approximately $2,500 annually to support 3 to 4 teleconferences and 1 face-to-face meeting of the Domestic Violence Advisory Council, and this bill would extend these costs to January 2015.
Very good. We have a motion by Senator Corbett. Without any further questions, we'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Price, aye. Runner? Runner, aye. Walters? Walters, aye. Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Wyland, aye. Yee, aye. 11-0.
11-0, that bill is out.
Thank you
Mr.
very much,
Fortani, you're taking up 506?
Yes, I'm pleased to bring before you.
State teachers' retirement. Okay, Mr. Denham has a motion on this bill. Do you want to just summarize it in a sentence?
Yes, well, I'll have my witness summarize then, if you would.
Very good.
Good morning. Mary Ann Ashley with the California State Teachers Retirement System. We're the sponsors of this bill. AB 506 has no actuarial impact on our system, and any minor administrative costs would be absorbed. What it does is it extends our current post-retirement earnings exemptions by 2 years, and it also imposes a 6-month break between retirement and returning post-retirement so that we can comply with IRS regulations.
Very good. Is there any further support testimony? All righty, very briefly then. Welcome.
Jeff Freitas with the California Federation of Teachers in Support.
Thank you very much. Any further testimony in support? Any opposition? Finance, do you have a comment?
The administrative costs of this bill would be minor and absorbable. To the extent that retirees work in positions that are exempted from earning limits, there could be forfeited savings to the Teachers Retirement Fund.
Thank you. We have a motion from Senator Corbett, from Senator Denham. I get you two mixed up all the time. Okay. Senator Denham, and we'll call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Aye. Cox, aye. Corbett? Aye. Corbett, aye. Denham? Aye. Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Aye. Runner, aye. Walters? Aye. Walters, aye. Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. 11-0.
11-0, that bill is out.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hagman, thank you for your patience. And you will be taking up AB 515. Members, Mr. Hagman has been working with staff. I think we have an amendment that cures our suspense issue on this. Mr. Hagman, you want to explain that to the committee?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Happy to present 515, which is a cleanup bill for repossessors. We were going to accept...
This is 515.
515, yes. To accept the staff's recommended amendments as well as strike the phrase throughout the bill without the necessity of making an appointment, and to add for regular non-emergency business, which I believe satisfies staff's concern about any kind of additional cost to the state. So hopefully there's no cost to the state at all with this, and respectfully ask for your aye vote on that. This
amendment that Mr. Hagman's taking does satisfy our concerns, so it's a good one. Let's see. That's right. Senator Cox makes a motion to pass as amended. Is there testimony in favor?
Carl Brackensick on behalf of the sponsor, the California Association of Licensed Repossessors. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further testimony in favor? Any opposition testimony? Finance?
In light of the amendments taken in committee, I don't know that this is relevant.
Thank you very much. We have a motion, members. Please call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, aye. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Denham, aye. Hancock? Leno? Aye. Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Aye. Price, aye. Runner? Aye. Runner, aye. Walters? Aye. Walters, aye. Wolk? Aye. Wolk, aye. Wyland? Aye. Wyland, aye. Yee? Aye. Yee, aye. 11-0.
11-0, that bill is out.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
And you're very welcome. And now you will take up AB 3X35.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And that's on triple extraordinary session. I don't know if you have to do anything procedurally. Thank you, members. This has been a little bit of an issue for our local school district.
Right, and it does
Chino
meet the
Hills.
suspense criteria.
Correct. I would argue that there was a board ruling on, I believe, Wednesday this week, the Board of Education, that based on their statement, they're not looking for any kind of financial penalties from the school district. They are seeking to have the students, and if you don't know the story, 2 schools out of 2014 of Valley Unified School District were respectively 5 minutes late in one school and 10 minutes short in their minimum day requirements in another school. Both those schools made their 5,400 minutes. One's a pretty high-performing school, the one that was 10 minutes late. And according to state law, they would have to re-put in 34 days of education, which they can't do in this fiscal year. They asked for a waiver from the Board of Education to extend that school year past the June 30th deadline, so they put the 34 days. They self-initiated the students going to class. And the school board has denied that waiver to extend the date because of STAR testing and a bunch of other reasons. In the school board's recommendations, they did tell the school district to seek out legislate as one of their ways, as well as apply. There's a lot of problems with the school district members. I won't doubt you they shouldn't be here in the first place. They shouldn't be here. This is a mistake on the administration part of that school district. The superintendent, the vice superintendent, and several administrators have since been fired or left the school district. But right now, they're still in limbo when that they need to redo 34 days of education for the 4th through 6th graders, or my bill suggests 10 days, and that was a compromise. It has passed out of the Assembly Education of all the votes, wharfed off the floor of the Assembly of 70-some-odd votes, came to Senate Education of all the votes, and my interpretation is, since the state's not seeking a financial penalty at this, is not a fiscal issue at this point. They're looking at the number of days to make up during a time period. The way they came up with 10 days was to take what the minimum day, 180 days are, add the 5 or 10 minutes that they missed, add on the additional 60 minutes that they would normally put in for a full 240-minute day, and came up with 10 days. I thought that was a good compromise. They worked that out with it.
Yes, very, very good, Mr. Hagman. I think we have a question here. Okay. Senator Runner?
I'm confused a bit by trying to figure out who's getting punished here. It seems to me at the end of the day, it's the kids that are getting punished and their families as a result of this error. And it seems to me that that is absolutely in the wrong place for this to take place. Now, can somebody explain to me why we understand, I mean, why does the state have increased or loss of revenue or increased cost on this particular element?
We could have staff respond. Right now, Mr. Runner, the children are no longer attending class. That deadline ended July 1, so the suffering, as you put it, is over.
No, I don't think it's entirely correct, because I think they're still hanging over their head.
And there are a lot of issues to be worked out, but on the idea of the state's fiscal involvement, Mr. Troy can respond if you like.
Yes, please.
Yes, Dan Troy with committee staff. The issue in question here is that the state has a voluntary program by which if schools provide up to 180 days of a school year, they received additional funding for doing that. So essentially it's a voluntary incentive program. Because this district had a couple of schools that did not provide days that satisfied the minimum day requirements, 34 of those days did not count. Therefore, they will be penalized the amount of the roughly the amount of the incentive, which would total, if all the days are taken out, would be about $7.6 million.
So the gain, okay, so the gain
so it's
to
a
the
loss
state,
of revenue.
this gain that the state is looking for is a result of the penalty that these school districts are paying?
Right.
Right, okay. Yeah. So the loss that the state's going to lose is because of the penalty.
Finding, essentially.
And meanwhile,
the state paid for those days in the first place, but
Correct.
the school didn't teach them. Or not long enough.
And it should be noted that the district has moved forward with this program they've done in anticipation of an audit finding. The audit finding is not actually.
Okay, let me follow up this specific question, because it seems to me that we've got kids and families in the middle of this tug of war, and it seems to me that we ought to be solving this problem at least for them, so that they don't have this hanging over their head, and then the bureaucrats can fight over what's going to take place next. Help us understand, from your perspective, Assembly Member. What will happen if this gets hung up for another month here in the legislature?
Thank you, Senator. First of all, it's not accurate. The students went to school until last, I believe Thursday was the last day of school after the hearing on Wednesday of school board. If this was heard earlier, hopefully it would have been done before June 30th. They still have 34 days of makeup days according to state law. Most of those students, they have to make 75% attendance and staff are doing the take-home studying to do those days. So they have packets of homework to do and staff time to correct that homework and to make sure they abide by all the state rules for doing that independent study at home. They don't know whether they're still working at 34 days or looking at 10 days to do that makeup stuff. Again, I would argue that there is no fiscal impact because the state board is already in their statement. It's not looking for
So the point
money.
is that they're not going to school, but now they have hanging over their head this ongoing at-home work that they're doing along with their parents and families for these few minutes they lost each day.
Correct.
Meanwhile, these kids have all finished school. It's a high-performing school that this would take place in. I'd like to make a motion that we do pass this bill in order for the sake of these kids and these families.
And I'll make one more statement too, Senator, if I could. Out of the two schools, one of them would have automatically been waived this requirement if they would have applied separately. Again, the school board or the school district was not squared away in the mountains of paperwork or rules and regulations like it should be, and they applied both of them together. So both schools are caught in this mess, but one of them, since it's over 900 API school, would not even be here, would not be an issue. It's just really the one school, but they applied together. But right now they still have those 34 days.
Again, I don't mind if the bureaucrats and the folks start working at who owes who money in the process. I just hate to see kids and families in the middle of this while we work through this. And it seems to me if we can expedite this by getting this bill done, getting it onto our floor, rather than waiting the next month, it makes sense.
I would ask for a vote, please. Thank you.
Members, I'm very sympathetic to the families whose summer vacations and other commitments got messed up, but that time has passed now, as Mr. Hagman pointed out. There's no more mandatory classroom hours, and unfortunately, the school district did make a significant error. And recognized it and went ahead and formed its own, fix to it, which was not discussed with the state or any other, body that would kind of agree to it. So we've got a problem here where state funds have been expended on behalf of the school year. The district did not fulfill its obligations. There are, suffice it to say, numerous issues to be worked out between the Department of Education and the district, and that's what we'll do in the time that the bill spends on suspense, which is roughly about 5 weeks from now. So we will get to that, but there is a motion on the table right now.
Just to clarify, though, the families and kids are still in the process of having to make up that time. Isn't that correct?
Correct. They're still doing their
They're just not doing it. They're just not doing it at school right now.
The district, indeed, Mr. Runner, the district needs to make up that time. The district was short in its counting, despite its high-performing academics. It was short in its counting, and between the district and the Board of Education, the Department of Education now, there needs to be a workout of how they're going to come into balance.
Now, let me just make it clear. The amount of time that they're making up is not equivalent to the amount of minutes lost, are they?
No.
And by what percentage?
Oh, I believe in one school case, you're adding 65 minutes per day versus the 5 minutes they lost.
That just doesn't make any sense.
Mr. Runner, that's the policy of the Board of Education. As you know, the Department of Education, every district in the state that receives these funds is subject to those rules. I'm sorry Chino didn't count correctly. They could have also notified the Department of Education when the error was discovered. So now time has passed, and we are in a very complicated situation with a lot of extenuating circumstances, and that is one of the reasons.
But can't this negotiation still go on in regards to the loss of dollars, all of those other issues, and then relieve the burden that's being placed on these students who have successfully completed their year?
Mr. Runner, all I can say to you is there are numerous details of this arrangement that need to be worked out, and that is one of the reasons I want to see the bill go to suspense. I think it's important that the district and the education department get on the same page, and they're not there at the moment.
And Madam Speaker, may I just say, I have the email release from the Board of Education. I have been communicating with them. They're actually, one of the three remedies they say is citing this bill, saying that the school district should seek out legislative relief. Their hands were tied by the laws we passed here, making it very restrictive of how we do our school days. Even though we pass all the time, 4-day school days, we make all these arrangements for the teachers to have study breaks in the middle of the week, make the minimum days on behalf of the school district and the teachers who teach so they can have that time. But we made it so restricted they cannot rule on this the way it was presented. This school district came up on its own, self-audited, and determined they were out of compliance and tried to fix it. It wasn't the correct way, but the intentions of them were good, and now they're being penalized, and frankly the students are being penalized, and the parents are being penalized because they did that. I would just
Mr.
respectfully
Hagman,
ask for a vote today.
Just let me point out to the members on page 2 of the analysis, the district submitted an appeal to the State Board of Education to provide the school days after July 1, and the board denied that request, questioning the attendance of additional days and the quality of the program provided. So there's a clear difference of opinion, the way Chino sees the problem and the State Board of Education. And the working out the fiscal matters is why it's going to suspense. Now, we do have a motion on the table to do pass. I believe that's your motion, Mr. Runner. We have a witness. Would you care to hear from the witness before I take a vote on the measure?
Sure.
All righty. Go ahead, sir.
Mike Legan on behalf of the California Teachers Association. We're in support of this bill. We believe it strikes an appropriate, or creates a framework and strikes a balance for correcting the error, being a caution to other districts not to make sure they count right and not punish kids. We think it would be appropriate to pass this bill now. We don't want to be put in a position of cutting our nose off to spite our face. We respectfully ask for your aye vote.
That's a very surprising support. And nevertheless, it's there and on the record.
It has to have one no vote or one abstention vote.
Finance, do you have a comment?
We're still working on the analysis, but initially we are estimating that this would result in $7.5 million in potential audit exemptions as a result of this bill.
Is there any opposition to the bill? Any further testimony, pro or con? Members, my parliamentary procedure was incorrect. We take up the suspense, and we're going to do a motion on suspense first. That's the more dispositive ruling, the least dispositive ruling. If that fails, then we'll take up your motion to pass.
I thought we had a discussion earlier when there was a bill up that you took a vote on that a motion to pass out of this committee was appropriate.
And we lost on that.
Your motion is not out of order.
Uh-huh.
It's just that the suspense motion comes first.
Okay, but if it goes to suspense, then my motion would need to be to remove it from suspense?
It would be, I'll have to consult.
Okay.
Why don't you go on the mic, Mr. Franzoni?
Bob Franzoia with the Senate Appropriations Committee. If the motion is to suspense, it would take a 2-day file notice for the committee to notice the bill to have a vote to come off of suspense.
So we have no vehicle to even take a vote on this particular bill right now. If you go ahead and pass to move it to suspense?
The suspense motion would prevail, yes.
And a substitute motion to the suspense motion would be appropriate?
I think the suspense motion is going, it would be, the other motion would be a due pass, Senator Rutter, but as the rules say, the suspense motion is the primary motion.
But it would be inappropriate to do it seems to me that always in motion would be, always proper would be a substitute motion.
Well, again, we'll have to let the consultant.
If the substitute motion is due pass, that is considered a main motion. Under Mason's manual, a subsidiary motion, which is the suspense file motion, takes precedent.
So again, let me just review what we had a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago. There was a bill that was supposed to go to suspense. The chair chose not to put it in suspense and do a due pass. Would it have been appropriate at that time for another member to make a motion to put it into suspense?
That discussion, Senator Runner, I think centered on the idea that the bill was a candidate for suspense.
Okay.
It was not. It was not the final opinion of the committee that it was going to suspense. It was a wobbler, so to speak.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I take it there is objections to the suspense motion, so I'll ask for a motion to send this item to the suspense file. Senator Leno moves. Please call the roll.
Kehoe?
Aye.
Kehoe, aye. Cox? Cox, no. Corbett? Corbett, aye. Denham? Denham, no. Hancock? Hancock, aye. Leno? Leno, aye. Oropeza? Price? Price, aye. Runner?
No.
Runner, no. Walters? Walters, no. Wolk? Wolk, aye. Wyland? Wyland, no. Yee? Yee, aye. 7-5.
What's up? 7 to 5, the bill is in suspense. Our sergeant at arms is here. Members, we need to report to the floor. Mr. Beer? To the floor. We're in session. Sorry. It happens. File.